show is about to begin.
What's up, YouTube? What's up, Fireside? It's the What Are You Made Of show. It's your boy C-Roc. I'm in the building, sitting out by the pool with these loud-ass bugs and birds. But there's some things that you have to give up if you want to be outside, and that is quiet. So, Rebecca, hit that little video button at the bottom here. Let me invite you to video. We're live here now on Fireside and YouTube. This, as of last week, we've pushed it over to YouTube. And I'm excited to bring YouTube some of this content. What's up, Rebecca?
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you great. Can you hear me okay?
Awesome, yes. And can you hear my friends, the bugs?
I can. And it's a great reminder that you give up something for something.
Look, yeah, because I want to sit out here. It's just so beautiful. I don't want to sit inside my house. And I have this, I don't show everybody this, but there's a view of downtown Ocean City down there. The ocean's like right over those trees. So, I just love it here. It's just so awesome. So I like to do my show out here whenever I can.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, so it's great to finally have you on the show. The What Are You Made Of show is about the ingredients that have gone into making my guests who they are. And I'm going to start off by introducing you with your bio, Rebecca. And then I'm going to ask you the famous question, what are you made of? But hold tight. Not yet.
Okay.
Rebecca Bender is with us today. She's an author, entrepreneur, and TEDx speaker. She is the founder and CEO of Rebecca Bender Initiative, a nonprofit that fights human trafficking and has trained over 118,000 professionals, including FBI, Homeland Security, and undercover officers. She regularly testifies at trials as a subject matter expert and runs Elevate Academy, the largest online school in the world for survivors of human trafficking. She's an award-winning thought leader, advocate, author, and consultant. She educates on many human trafficking-related topics and serves as an advisor to Congress and a variety of leading organizations, and also is now a TV producer living in LA, helping use story to shape culture. Welcome back. Welcome. I say welcome back because we've talked before, but welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so look, Rebecca, we got to ask you this question first because otherwise I go down a rabbit hole and I forget to ask the question and my team kicks my butt. So what are you made of?
That's a hard question. I think I would say probably resilience and grit. I don't know. It's a simple answer.
Yeah, no. I love that.
A very complex question.
No, I love that. And the people that answer the question that way are the ones that are successful, the super successful that have achieved something, that are making impact. I hear that answer majority of the time, and that's the people that I hear that from. And I think in saying that is a reminder of over the 600 episodes I've had here on the What Are You Made Of show. The majority of the most successful people, their whole talk and story is all about things that they've overcome and the persistence. And that's why I wanted to start the show, because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs that go through, start something, and then they bounce to the next thing because they feel like they're not supposed to run into roadblocks, hardships, setbacks, discouragement, all the stuff. And they really feel like alone. So that's why I wanted to have the show to encourage people with that. Rebecca, let me ask you, where does it all start for you? Like, I just read through your bio. I know what you're working on now. I'm amazed. I want to support you. I want to elevate your mission as much as I possibly can. But where did it all start for you? Why is this your mission? Why is it so important to you?
I'm a survivor of human trafficking. So my very quick story, I was lured off a college campus when I was about 18. I was a young single mom trying to put myself through college. And I met a young man who I thought I was dating. I thought was, you're young and in love. I didn't know that he was a trafficker. I think we all picture human trafficking as these like kidnapped kids in foreign countries. At least that's what I pictured it. And I'm assuming I grew up in a similar community as all your, listeners now and as of you. And so when my situation didn't look like we see in the media, I didn't realize that I was, sinking in quicksand and that I was actually dating a con artist who was not the age he said he was. He didn't have the job he said he had. He had a long criminal record. And so when he invited me to move in with him after dating me for 6 months, I was excited. I thought I'd met the one. And then he told me his job was relocating him to Las Vegas. And so I went thinking, every good woman follows her man kind of thought. And the day that we arrived, he took my daughter and forced me into human trafficking. And obviously, it's a really hard topic, but for nearly 6 years, I was bought and sold between three different traffickers. I was hospitalized for dehydration and overexhaustion, been to jail multiple times, I've had my face broken in many places. I was really hopeless. I thought, how did I get here? Like, I was a good kid from a good home. How do I get out of this? I'm so embarrassed. I'm so ashamed. And thankfully, in '06, the feds raided our home, allowed an eventual avenue for escape. It's not like you see on the movies. And I fled. And after about a year of kind of letting the dust settle, I came back to my small farm town in Oregon, where I'm from, and I kind of felt like, now what? Like, what do you do with the rest of your life after you've been able to get out alive? Such horrific experiences. And I thought, I wonder if cops knew what was happening behind the scenes, if things would have been different, if the regular arrests in county jail would have been different, if the federal investigation would have been different. So I started a law enforcement training, was not expecting it to blow up. It did. And then we had other survivors start to reach out and say, how'd you do that? Like, how'd you take your story and turn it into something with a call to action and meaning and purpose? And so we started Elevate in hopes to help other survivors get job ready and figure out their now what. Everyone kind of, when you start over with nothing, literally with nothing. And so what do when you try to figure out your skills, your gifts, your talents? It's a process, and it's been an incredible journey, but that's kind of the reason why I got into the work I do today.
Wow, man. So we talked before. I didn't know all that because I wanted to save it for the show, really. And uh, so first of all, was this gentleman doing this to several other girls at the same time he was dating you for that 6 months?
Yeah, he already had a victim in Vegas I didn't know about. It's just part of that grooming process. We tell people traffickers date, groom, turn out, and then break. That's kind of the cycle. And they keep all their victims in different parts of that cycle because you never know when someone might run, when they might get picked up, when they might unfortunately not make it. So they're always in that grooming, dating phase, and that's more prevalent than stranger danger. It's like we should be more concerned with who the people in the circles of influence are for our kids and our loved ones, not just be careful for the white minivan. It's not like that. It's like, be careful who
Yeah.
you're talking to on Instagram. Be careful who you're dating. Make sure you know who they are. Make sure you can verify where they live and work, and do a little more research.
And then, so a lot of people don't understand these things, and especially including myself. I'll blame it on other people that they don't understand. I know everything, but I have questions here. So, because I think it's important for people to really have a grasp on really what happened. So, he took your daughter. Where did your daughter end up going? Like, what happened with that?
His brother had helped us move, and I had met his brother lots of times. In my mind, it's a natural progression of a relationship to meet someone's family. And so his brother helped us move, and he said, leave the baby with my brother. I want to take you out on the town. And so I borrowed my friend's fake ID. I'm in Vegas, right? Like, I put on my best club gear. I'm thinking I'm going out. And
And how old were you at this
and
time?
I was probably almost 19 by then.
Okay.
And so I left my daughter, who was probably about a year old at that time. 6 months to a year. I left her with the brother, and we did not go to the nightclub. He drove me to a dead end street where there was an escort service, and slapped me across the face and said, "You're going to go in the room and you're going to get my money back." And not only did I have, obviously I'm making the story very short for time's sake, but
Yeah.
not only did I have the moments of feeling like, what's happening? Because you're in love and you're thinking, like, what's going on with this relationship? But I did have that moment of, I don't know where my baby is. I don't know my address by heart. I just got there yesterday. I don't know if his brother's taken her. If I jumped out of the car and ran, I wouldn't even know where to tell anyone to take me to get back to her. And so I just kept kind of pushing all of those red flags that were, totally going off inside me like alarm bells, pushed them aside and just kept thinking like things will be better tomorrow. I'll get back to being hopeful and excited about the future that he painted for us tomorrow. And I just kept kind of telling myself that in hopes I could get back to her that night.
And then so did they, so they after that they used. I want to like people to understand, and I want to understand. How does he keep the grasp on you for days after that? Was it your daughter one? Was it there's something else? Like, yeah, how did that all like transpire where he kept the grips on you?
Yeah, it's hard for people to understand. Sometimes I try to explain it. It's kind of like Stockholm syndrome, capture bonding, trauma bonding. Like there's actual domestic human trafficking. Research shows that it fits every indicator of cult behavior. So when we think like, well, why don't people leave cults? Or why don't women in domestic violence just run? It's like there's this weird trauma bond that kind of happens where it's not always horrible, right? And so when you see the glimmers of hope or the glimmers of, oh, I've got the moving money back, now we can go back to that exciting, hopeful life that we had prior to Vegas, you kind of keep holding on to the hope that the dangling carrot that you're consistently shown is going to be attainable. And you kind of push through like, well, it's just this little bit or it's just this one time. And then it goes a few days where it's not. And then it's something else happens, something, oh, we need money for this. And after a few times, you start to feel like, I can't tell anybody. Like now I don't want anyone to know. I'm so embarrassed that I've crossed this line, totally self blame. It's not like, no, I complied out of fear. I think, well, I made the choice, and so you self blame, and you're trying to, in a sense, attain the thing that you feel like now you've crossed all these lines where you've risked all these things for. It's like, well, now what do you do? And who do I tell? And so it just feels easier to try to find an exit plan and navigate the situation that than trying to navigate this whole world you know nothing about. Like, what if I tell law enforcement, or am I going to have my daughter taken from me because I've now participated in like a sex crime? Will I have to be a registered sex offender? Like, there's all these unknowns. So you just, you try to do what you can in the moment that you have. And I also tell people, to your question, I'm sure you have more, but I think when people ask some of those questions, those are great questions coming from a healthy adult brain. And we have to remind people that most traffic victims are between ages of 16 to 24. It's not always a developed brain, oftentimes come from a lot of vulnerabilities prior to these abusive encounters. So you're not thinking from a healthy adult brain in those moments. You're thinking from a traumatized, scared teenage brain that's making a series of reactions, not necessarily choices, in these like split second moments that you have. And sure, in hindsight, there's always things I wish I would have done different, as I'm sure all of us, because we all made our best decisions at 19. I'm sure all of your decisions at 19, Mike, were phenomenal and you don't regret any of them. But, it's the same. It's like you're just trying to do the best with what you've been dealt in that moment. And when they're really scary moments, they do feel like life or death moments. You just react. And sometimes you fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Those reactions are very real for trauma and the brain.
Yeah, let's this show you're the guest today, so let's not get into my 19-year-old because let me tell you something. I mean, I was a knucklehead, and I did some stupid stuff, and I agree 100%. I understand that. So were you able to see your daughter like every day then after that, or they took her for good from you?
No, I saw her every day, but I wasn't allowed to drive. He drove me, to and from grocery stores. He drove me to and from every single call. He took the money after every call. So, calling a cab isn't an option. Sometimes I'd be paid in casino chips. You're not 21, you can't cash them in. So like there's a lack of financial freedom in a sense where you can't move freely. So you do become really dependent on this abuser, and it's hard to like, okay, now what do I do? How do I buy a plane ticket? I can remember I had multiple attempted escapes. When people say, why didn't you just run? My answer is like, well, I did. Why do you think I'm standing here? But I had multiple attempted escapes and they didn't always go well, right? I got all the way to the airport once and they wouldn't sell me a plane ticket with cash post 9/11. I'm standing there with cash begging to get on a flight and they won't sell me one. It's like, so in the moment I thought, well, I'll just get home before he notices I've been gone too long and I'll figure it out tomorrow. Or I'll try to start sending money home to my mom so she can buy me a plane ticket when I call next time. And, you just start trying to figure out how to do it. And it's scary and it feels like there's this ticking time bomb of severe abuse that is looming, and you got to think quick, and it's hard. And there was times I did get all the way home, and he came to Oregon, to my tiny farm town. And so then it's like, well, now how does he know where my mom lives? Is he going to hurt my family? So there becomes really scary situations that it's like, how do I get out of this? And so I was thankful in a sense that the feds raided, although they took all the victims to prison. My trafficker had put, and this was the third trafficker by then, because like I said, I've been sold between three different kind of crime families. And so you're always scared and afraid of all of that. But they had put all of the things in our social security numbers, like they bought homes and businesses they were laundering money through, and they put it all in the victims' names. So unless the victims would talk, the victims were threatened with prison time. Everyone was way too afraid to talk, and 2 out of 4 of us ended up serving 13 months in federal prison.
Wow, man. Holy cow. And so, what crime family is this? Like, is this like the cartels, or is this like Italian mob, Russian mob? Like,
No, trafficking is much more isolated. They're not this big network of crime families. They're much more individualized. There might be 2 or 3 of them from a similar community or neighborhood that grew up together. And then they have lots of the women in their home. So when you think of family, it's like there was 4 women and 2 children in our home alone. And then my trafficker had a series of contacts that he would just solely rely on those small groups. They're much more cellular, not this big network like you would see in giant, organized crime. Much smaller.
and as you're going through this day to day, was there any happy moments that you had? Because you're living life, right? Like your life is going by. Years are going by right now, right? And you have a
Yeah.
choice at that time. Like, was there any moments where you were able to enjoy yourself at all? Not I'm talking about the activities, not like that, but I'm talking about on a day to day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think this is the epitome of brainwash. Brainwash replaces ideologies with a new set of rules, and they reinforce them through punishment and reward. And if we forget the reward part, one, it messes with your neurology, right? Because you're thinking, oh, I'm having this good experience, when really that's also a part of the intent of the trafficker. That's a part of their brainwash, is to do the rewards when you behave, the rewards for good behaviors. So even the good moments, or the moments where you feel like, the women in the home became my very best friends. And so when it's time to run, you're like, man, am I going to leave all these women behind? And what if she gets the brunt of his abuse because I ran in the middle of the night? And so you become this small, family, for lack of better words, that becomes really complex to leave. And you have a lot of survivor guilt. Like, will the kids be hurt? Will the other women be hurt? If I can't help pay her legal fees, will she go to prison if I run? So there becomes all of this, like, it's hard to explain. It's like you feel indebted or you feel obligated to the other women who have had your back that whole time, and who help you in dangerous situations when you're on the streets. And so you feel an obligation to everyone in the home. And so, yeah, we did have times together as friends that we would, go to the pool, go to the movies, have a spa day. But I think it's important to remind people that those are tactics of traffickers that are equally as manipulative and coercive as a physical assault, and they're purposely doing them. The rewards are a part of the abuse.
Yeah, I get it. So now I'm going to shift focus a little bit here, and bear with me. So one of the things I think about is if we can stop the demand, then but is that possible? Like, is it possible to stop the demand? And like this gentleman, I don't want to call him gentleman, this person, he got caught, right? Eventually, and then the other ones got caught. So, but what caused them to get to the point to be traffickers in the first place, too? Not just the people that are paying the money for sex, but the traffickers themselves. Like, what did they go through to become that?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, totally. I think, 2 of my traffickers did not do prison time. One did do prison time, but only for tax evasion. So he only did 2 years in prison for tax evasion. Um, and I think the hard part is reminding everybody that vulnerable kids exist in our neighborhoods everywhere we live, right? Everywhere. What gets people into selling drugs? What gets people into gangs? What gets people into trafficking? What addictions are fueling a demand of purchase of sex for sale that's on the rise like never before in our culture? It's a marketing equation. It's supply and demand, right? And product. And it's a simple marketing equation. And so when we think of vulnerable community groups, we're thinking of kids in foster care, we're thinking of marginalized groups. It's like we can't just be focused. I shouldn't say we can't. I don't think we should just be focused on those that are highest risk for victimization, although that is important. But we also have to think of the young people that are getting lured into crime because they don't have a lot of option either. And they've also been desensitized to abuse in their home growing up, or they've lived in a world where gang life is normal. And so, how do we help any youth, any young person, not become a buyer, seller, or a victim? Like, how do we support, kids in marginalized communities across your very own neighborhood? And I tell people, if you can close your eyes and picture the most at-risk group in your part of town, traffickers can too, and they're going to be looking. They're taking car rides. They're literally making circles around teen foster homes. They're stopping at those bus stops, asking those girls if they need rides. They're thoughtful and meticulous in trying to find vulnerable people, and that might even mean mentoring another young man to become the next trafficker. We've seen young men that are recruited to say, hey, if you go on Instagram and you DM 100 girls today and can get one phone number for me, I'll give you $250. We've seen cases like that. So you get a young 19-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid just DMing girls all day so he can get his $250. He's not even realizing the extent to which he's participating as a recruiter. And so I think we're just not thinking sometimes through like the legal framework is really it can be harsh penalties. And I think because young people that are vulnerable are being targeted from every aspect, it's like people don't realize there's that connection. Like we think of traffickers and recruiting, and it's like this big movie scene, and we don't realize it can be just as simple as asking that young man in the group foster home if he'll DM a couple girls on Instagram. It can literally be that. It can seem that that simple, and it is.
So I don't have questions prepared. I just ask questions that come to mind, and I don't always have a filter. So excuse some of these questions, and you can not answer some of them. But I just want to make sure that I, uh, you know, share everything I'm thinking about. So number one,
Mm-hmm.
it's not just sex for sale. I'm sure that the porn industry is involved with this as well. Is that true from your expertise? Like, because there's a lot of porn on the internet. I'm concerned with my kids at all times because I don't know what, I can limit so much. I don't know what slips through. But then
Yeah.
that industry in itself is legal in a way. Unlike
Yeah. I mean,
unlike the other part, the sex trafficking or the sex trade, right? So are they bringing victims in there to do that as well? And number two, what percentage of escort services, from your expertise, even if you know, are sex trafficked victims versus a girl that's just doing it for money?
yeah, this is a question we get a lot. And I mean, here's the thing. It's like there's this I think sometimes we picture human trafficking as this like one isolated crime that's hidden in the shadows or in people's basements, and the reality is that illegal activity happens in any commercial sex industry, as whereas anywhere. Like prescription drugs aren't bad, but we all know that fentanyl's on the rise, and oxycodone, whatever. Like we've all seen painkillers and dope sick. Like things, bad guys are going to try to make money from a pot of pie that's has a lot to offer. And so if we think of that similarly with prescription drugs, it's the same in terms of like commercial sex exists legally in our country, and it is what it is to anyone that feels that they want to participate, whether by choice, force, or circumstance. But if we also don't realize that there are going to be traffickers amongst all of those industries, then we're being naive, because there are bad guys that are going to try to get a slice of that pie, just like prescription drugs. And so the problem for most people is you just don't know. Like you don't know if that person on the screen is there by choice or force. You don't know if the person you're calling, it's hard. And so I think trying to raise kids, like you're saying, to be really mindful of the risk, mindful of the engagement and the involvement, um, it can be really, really dangerous. And we see cases all the time where people are being recruited in other arenas, whether it's starting on porn or starting in strip clubs, and then slowly but surely their trafficker begins to push those boundaries, and threaten if they don't comply to do more. And so you just got to be careful and wise and on the lookout and look for red flags. Anyone that's taking your money, and not allowing you to have any profit is trafficking. The element of trafficking is the commercial exchange. So anytime a third party perpetrator is profiting off of you, and you can't say no, or you can't say no, I don't feel like doing that tonight, or I don't feel like signing up, or I don't feel like that. As soon as that line is crossed is when it becomes trafficking.
Well, before we pivot, I want to just commend you for your courage and strength and the things that you went through. And I don't know what like. I mean, I don't know if you feel like sharing like what kind of things you still feel that you're facing right now as a result of that, or have you gone through therapy to get through a lot of it for yourself, to heal, to develop past it? Do you want to
Yeah.
speak on any of that part before we?
Yeah, lots of therapy. I've been in therapy for a long time. Feel really good about overcoming, trauma and PTSD. And EMDR is a therapeutic modality that's really helpful for people that have been diagnosed with PTSD. So that's been a lifesaver for me. And getting different coaches and leadership coaches. Started this nonprofit. It was actually the third company I had started. I had done some for-profit companies prior, sold them to go into nonprofit work, and some of our team have joined us on here, but I always joke is probably not funny joke, but I'm always like, my trafficker didn't teach me how to run a staff meeting. So like I had to learn how do you call a board meeting to order? How do you understand charts of accounts and development? So many leadership coaches that have really come alongside and mentored me along the way, and just reminded me of kind of reminding you of your gifts, right? Reminding you of your goodness. That you are smart, you can do this, instead of listening to the voices that had been kind of saying the opposite for so long. It's really a mental shift that has taken lots of years and still does. Still sometimes I'm like, man, I don't know if I can do this. Man, maybe I've bitten off more than I can chew. Maybe my vision is too big. But you just got to keep surrounding yourself with people that'll encourage you and remind you that you can and how far you've come, and that it's not going to stop now. You're going to keep going. You're going to keep continue on that trajectory.
The other thing to think about is the people that come into your life afterwards, and from this point forward too, that are great people that mean that mean well, and they want to see elevate, great, be great, and all that. But you have maybe a trust issue that comes stems from the past, or something you see in that person reminds you of something that you've experienced in the past. Like, have you dealt with that as well, and tried to like has there been people that you think possibly that were in your life that were like either it could be romantic or a friend or a business or whatever that you were like look back now and be like that was a good dude or that was a good lady, but they just had something that reminded me and I couldn't get past that.
If anything, honestly, it's been the opposite. It's been where I attach too quickly. And it's like, I want to believe the best in everyone because I believe that these were one off individuals that were really shady characters. But I've had really, my dad is a good dad. My grandpa was a great man. I know that good people exist. And so, if anything, wanting so much to accomplish the goal and really believing in the heart of humanity, I maybe jump into business too soon with someone. And it's like, shit, that was a bad business deal. I should have checked that girl out a little more. I should have just trusted that because she's in a similar work as me, her intention is pure. So if anything, it's actually been kind of the opposite, where it's like I so don't want my past to infiltrate my today that I'm actually going to ignore any potential gut reaction and move forward, because it's like you're so hell bent on not letting your trauma impact you that I might move less cautiously than I probably should. And so, working through that in therapy of like, gosh, is my attachment style? What is this trauma? Like, tell me, therapist, what is this? Um, but you so don't want your trauma to impact you that you can sometimes swing, I think, the other way too far too. And that's been my experience. I can't say that for everyone,
Yeah.
but that's
And
definitely
then
mine.
and romantically, are you able to have a healthy romantic relationship like with someone like a partner or something and not I just see the reason I'm asking this is growing up, I dated, I don't want to say a lot of girls, but I had a lot of relationships. I had girlfriends, this and that. And it seemed like a lot of them, like that I ran into, no matter what it was, they had issues that they would deal with and they would take it out on me. And I always thought it was me. But
Yeah.
yet they had a lot of like things that they ran into growing up, all different kinds of things. So, like, for me, I'm being vulnerable here with you as well. So, I felt like I had to choose girls that didn't have those things because I was afraid growing up in the brokenness that I grew up in to repeat what I saw growing up. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think, for me, reading a lot of relationship books, learning my attachment style, identifying what my triggers are, learning how to get through a trigger without it impacting my relationship. Um, I have to be like really mindful and aware of it. And if self-awareness and growth mindset will help anyone get through any hurdles in relationships, right? Being able to say, is this me? What's my part? What can I own? maybe I should take this to my therapist and not my partner. Those are all questions you got to kind of Rolodex in the middle of like talking to go, okay, maybe this is me. Or if I see a similar pattern, then I know I'm the only, common denominator here. If this keeps coming up, clearly it is something that I need to work on, and it's not every single person. So it's just being about, I think, being really self-aware of your own issues and areas that you tend to lean towards. If I have anxious attachment, it's like, I can tend to have a protest response instead of effectively communicating like, hey, I'm needing some reassurance today because I felt you distant. And so I've started to learn how to do that instead of going, why aren't you texting me anymore? Why didn't I get. So it's like I've just had to do, you read a lot, and you learn to try to take a lot to your support groups that aren't always your partner. And that's helped me, but who knows?
So
Who knows if
awesome.
I'm
So
doing it
awesome.
right?
Thank you for answering that question. You're awesome, by the way. So finally, as we wind down, I want to go to the television part. Like, I got this thing that came into me a couple years ago about you should be in film and TV. I don't know where it came from. It's something that I believe in God, and he's just hit me with something, and I don't know how that's going to come about. But I got this thing, and I don't know exactly what avenue it's going to be yet or all that. But when you got that inclination to get into television or whatever, how did that come about, one, and how did you execute on it and find an avenue?
Yeah, such a great question. I had this thought that popped in my mind one day: entertainment is the greatest tool you have to shape culture. And that was it. I just kind of ran with that. And I could picture my story as TV scenes. So I decided to take a TV writer's class. I wrote a pilot. And then every time I had been in LA for training law enforcement, someone told me once, people in LA don't ask you how they are, they ask you what you're working on. And so instead of, when I came here years ago, I would be asked, what are you working on? And I thought, well, I could tell people I'm training undercover cops this week. That's cool. It's fun to train LA's undercover unit. But instead I said, my dream is actually I'm working on a TV show, and I'm in a TV writer's class. I just finished a pilot. And one meeting would lead to another meeting. And eventually I got to pitch to a major studio, who said yes. And we got to interview writers, and I got a phenomenal writer who worked on our pilot, and we went into development with a network. And since then, the show did not get greenlit, but we're going back to the studio and grouping on a different avenue and direction. But for me, it was really just like, just put your dreams out there. Just put them out there. Stop hiding them. Stop pretending like you don't have them. Just start putting it out. Speak it into existence. Put it out into the world. See what happens. And just to do like the next best thing. I couldn't think of 5 years of what would happen with the show, but I could go through the next open door. And so every time I just felt like a little bit of intimidation or trepidation, or like, gosh, girls from small farm towns don't end up pitching to these major networks, walking into all the networks pitching this show. But yet here we are. And so I just kept like, well, I'm just going to do the next open door. I'm going to keep putting my dream out there, and we'll see where it goes. And so far, it's been an incredible journey. I've learned so much, and I'm excited to see where some of these projects land.
You're a badass, by the way. So I just want you to know, like, thoughts should have went through your head. Like, look at all the stuff that I've been through. I'm built for this shit. That's what you
There
need to
are times
start
that I
thinking.
thought, sometimes I do think like, I can't, when they said no, I was like, you know what, I've been through worse. So
Yeah.
nothing's worse than what I've been through. I'm just going to keep stepping out there. And that's that resilience and grit, right? Where it's like, at some point I just have to say, you know what, this can't be any worse than what I've been through. And I'm going to try my hand at it anyway. And if the door shuts and I start over, it won't be the first time, and it won't be the last. So you just keep moving forward.
Awesome. Well, listen, Rebecca, we're going to wrap this up here, but where can people engage with you further or follow along with your journey?
Yeah, I mean, we're on Instagram. I'm Rebecca Bender. You can go to our website, RebeccaBender.org. We would love, not only for you to follow our journey and what we're doing, but we have such an incredible school and academy. We're training law enforcement and helping survivors at almost every community across the country. We'd love for people to partner with us and join us, whether it's monthly or just signing up for our newsletters. Yeah, we'd love all the support and encouragement we can get. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to say it again. You are awesome. I love your courage, vulnerability, transparency, and more people need to hear from you, Rebecca.
no, thank you. Thanks for sharing your platform, and it's nice to meet all of your community.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you all for watching. Thank you to the team that showed up as well, Rebecca's team. Appreciate you guys being here. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you comment, like it. Let's go. Let people know about